Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street. I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. We are continuing today our specific Business of Apparel podcast series, where I am revealing to you what I know about the secrets behind the billion-dollar apparel brands out there. My 17-year career inside the walls of corporate buildings has really helped me understand what it takes to grow an apparel business. And what I've been finding is that the information is not being shared out there on the internet. So I am here today to continue teaching what I know. And we're going to get a little bit more today into your brand standards and what it means to set a few different standards across the board to make sure that you're getting out into the world what it is that your values are in a way that doesn't have to blast it, but kind of says it in a more discreet and subtle way. So last week we talked a lot about your target customer and why that's important and how I came to realize how important it was to continue revisiting your target customer year over year, or even in every single meeting that you're sitting in. And so as you move forward, once you've defined that target customer, you really want to start thinking about, what kind of a brand are you? And I noticed two very distinct sides of the coin when it comes to being an apparel brand or being in our industry right now. And the majority of brands go out there and they are trends-based businesses. So what this means is that they're looking at segments above them. They're maybe looking at high fashion. They're going on to WGSN.com, which is an amazing resource if you are a trends-based business, to go out and project what the trends are going to be for the designs that you're putting into works at whatever current time you're in. So let's say you're looking to start designing 2 years out from today, and your design team is getting together and you need to understand what is going to be a trend in the fashion market 2 years from today so that we can design into that and make sure that we're hitting those goals to meet our trendy customers. And WGSN, I have no affiliate with WGSN. This is just the source for you. So it does cost money to subscribe to WGSN. If you are part of a company, you can definitely ask maybe your manager or someone in an admin role to see if you either already have access to WGSN in some way, or maybe if they'd be willing to sign up for a corporate subscription. I think there are personal ones out there too that you could do. I don't know how much they cost. I have not looked into that, but I know throughout my career, whenever I did get access to its source, I was able to go in there and project out however many years really I was looking at. I don't believe anybody in the industry is designing farther than 4 or 5 years ahead. That would kind of be a little too far. We might be thinking about some inventions or some new blue sky stuff, which we'll talk about here in a minute, that far ahead. But if we're designing today, we want to be as close to the trend as possible. And so a lot of times we're seeing people looking at trends that are going to be 1, 2, or 3 years away from now, 3 maybe being the longest. But WGSN, when you go on there, is usually projecting out anywhere from 4 to 5 years away from where you're at. So they're going to be looking at silhouettes. They are going to be distilling down any of the high fashion runway looks that are coming off of those runways, how that's going to portray in your brand or in your segment, and what you need to know about them. They're also projecting out that far on color and what kind of color palettes could be really relevant that far away from now. And so as a trends-based business, it is important to understand how high fashion, ready to wear, those kinds of markets trickle down through the different segments of our industry so that you can make sure to read them properly and then apply them to the designs that you're working on. Now, there are so many people out in our industry who have mastered trends, and there are a lot of people who have full-time jobs, and all that they do is read trends and help to bring it back into their brand so that their design team and their product management teams know what it is that they should be looking at as they go forward. So this is definitely something that you could lean into as a career if you were interested in looking at trends for the rest of your life. It is a very cool side of our business. At the same time, you could lean into hiring somebody to come in and really help you with this if it's not quite clear where you sit in the segments of the apparel industry and how to read the segments above you. So that is one side of the business. This tends to be the majority of what we see in the apparel industry. Most people are trends based. And so they're looking at a lot of these same resources, which is why when we are shopping as consumers, we see a lot of the same things all over the place. Crop tops are big all at a certain time with many different brands, or maxi skirts are popular all at the same time. And so we're seeing a lot of that kind of dispersed across various different brands. And a lot of that is changing over time. I will totally admit that right now and in this kind of era of fashion, wearing what you want and describing your own personality with your clothes is something that's really big. But if we look back on the history of fashion, you can definitely see trends come and go. And so it really makes sense that resource out there is helping with that and kind of guiding us through that process. On the flip side, if you are not going to be a trends-based business, you are likely going to be an innovations-based business. And so these are the businesses who are out there inventing brand new ideas. What is missing from the market that you really want to be able to add? Have you been searching or shopping for something for your own closet or wardrobe and you can't find it? There is just a hole in the segment. And so this is an area where you could come in as a brand or you could come in as a designer and design something to fill that gap. Now, innovations and invention brands do tend to work on that longer timeline. So we tend to see ourselves prototyping and trying new things and testing out these inventions, bringing in different fabric options. Maybe the fit is a little bit different here or there. And all of that testing takes quite a bit of time. So in order to meet then your real development and design timeline, where you want to be 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years out from actual launch dates, you do want to build a testing, and a lot of us call this like blue sky, like we're just reaching for the sky. These are the inventions that we're coming up with. These are brand new ideas. And so if you have a blue sky kind of innovation side to your business, you want to be thinking about it early so that you've kind of checked all of the boxes on the testing that you want to do before you start putting it into an official design and development timeline. And that way you're not losing time, you're not risking your launch date, and you're able to kind of push all of these projects into a schedule and into a calendar that makes sense. So those are really kind of your two options. And that is going to depend on every single brand. Most brands, like I said, will go into trends-based because it is the most simplest way to get into the industry, to build a brand, and to become a wider part of what's going on in the fashion industry. If you want to be an innovations and an invention kind of brand, that is definitely going to be a bigger endeavor. And so just kind of knowing yourself and knowing what your brand stands for and how it serves its customers. So going back to your target customer and what do they want from you is going to be really important there. Once you know what kind of a brand you really want to be and how you're going to fit into those segments, one thing I want to talk about in addition today is naming your product. And naming product is something that I don't think enough people really talk about. It's something that feels simple or seems simple from the outside, but every single time I've been in a room of people who is trying to name a product, it is one of the most difficult processes that I have run into. And the reason is because naming can be anything that you want it to be. And when I work with my clients and we're building out, first initial line plans and we're trying to figure out what it is that we're going to be creating or designing or developing, we start really generic. We say, we're going to make a tech tee, we're going to make a legging, and we're going to make a skirt this season. And those end up being the names that go into our line sheet almost just as placeholders so that we can get moving and we're not hung up on putting in an actual name. But when it comes to naming your product that's going to be consumer facing, these are going to be going on your hang tags. This is going to be going on your website. This is going to be going into all of your marketing. All of that needs to be done on a timely enough schedule so that all of those elements can be put in place on time for you to get your production delivered the way that you need it to be and for you to, again, hit your launch date, which is crucial. So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story again today when it comes to naming to just help you understand what can happen when naming doesn't go right and why it can be really important to make sure you have all of the right people in the room and you have a standard for setting names. So many years ago, at one of my corporate jobs, we as a team had decided to totally rename our entire collection. It was something we had brand new leadership come into the group on the design side and on the product management side. So we had new leadership all over the place. They were really wanting to come in and make a stamp on the brand and revamp what we were doing. What had been done for the last 5-6 years was okay, but it wasn't really growing. There was a lot of stagnancy. And so we kind of felt like jazzing up some names might be a great way to add growth, add interest from new customers, and really get some new modern details into what we were doing out on the internet. And so we started to sit in a room and really boil down, like, what does our brand stand for? What are the important keywords that we might want to be using in our naming process? And it became very apparent to me really quickly how complicated this was going to be. And one of the reasons is because the line that we were working on, this was a big corporate brand, and we had so much product. And so for us to say, we're going to make a rain jacket. The rain jacket is the new name. Well, what about the other 3 rain jackets that we have in the line? We had a lightweight rain jacket. We had a fully waterproof rain jacket. We had a waterproof membrane breathable rain jacket. And so there were so many different elements of this one type of product name. And so how do we then add additional adjectives or additional words or additional brand names? Sometimes when I worked at Fossil, for example, we used men's and women's names in our product names. It was like the Emma dress or the Lucy dress. And so those were definitely the ways that Fossil chose to name their products. How could we add something like that to make sure that the customer understood what they were buying when they read the name? So we ended up with this huge whiteboard of just names and ideas and everything, like all over the place. It was this huge map of ideas. We had lists going all the time. People were going into separate rooms to meet about, what do you think about this name? Or what do you think about that? And at the end of the day, we finally came to an agreement of what we wanted to name everything. We put all of it in all of our line sheets. We put it into our catalog. We went ahead and got that out to the sales team. And we put it into the marketing team's hands so that they could do their work. And both the sales team and the marketing team went, whoa, wait a second. This doesn't stand for anything that the brand does. This totally divests from anything that we've done in the past. How does this make sense? Who did you include in this process? And it was a really big learning to make sure that when you are going through the naming process, you really need to have all of the right people in the room. Now, I am a big advocate for not having too many cooks in every kitchen. And so when you have a role and a responsibility at your brand on your apparel team, whatever your decision-making skills needs to be applied and needs to be honored. I truly believe that. Like, if you are the product manager and it is your decision to choose what kind of fit something is or to choose what the final cost needs to be, that decision needs to fall on you. And I believe that your leadership and your team should absolutely respect that. Same with development processes and same with design processes. Everyone should own a portion of what you're doing, and that ownership should be clear. It should be spelled out in everybody's roles and responsibilities, and then it should be absolutely respected by those who are surrounding you. However, in the naming process, I truly believe at this point, because of the different experiences that I've been a part of, that you really want to be including a lot more people in this process. And so you want to make sure everyone who will have an opinion on naming, you want them to be in the room with you so that they can voice their opinions. They can push back on you if they feel like it's not brand correct. Because going through this entire process, updating all of your line sheets, doing all of that work, if you're in a product line management system, you know how long it takes to update all of that software with brand new names. It might be a trickle-down effect to multiple teams that you then need to get them to update all of their data in concurring systems. And that can take so long. And if you've done it wrong to a point where someone else is going to come up to you later and say, hey, that doesn't work. You need to either change it back or we need to start from scratch again. Think about all of those hours and everybody's time that you've kind of wasted by not including all of the right people in the room. So this is really important to me to be able to relay how key it is for you as a brand or you as a team member at a brand to decide how to name your product in a very cohesive and clear way. A lot of people go really simple. I think Arc'teryx is a great example of kind of coming up with different words that mean different things to different people, but they are consistent with how they're naming all of their product. And so when you see a name on a shelf or you look at a hang tag, you know, oh, that's an Arc'teryx product. That's the way that they name their stuff. If you're in the performance apparel industry, you might want to be adding different words like aero or speed or things like that help to kind of convey a feeling about what that apparel is going to do for the athlete wearing it. And I really believe that your customer should know without even seeing a photo of the garment, what it is and what it's probably going to do for them. So if you're naming something completely off the cuff, and I'll go back to my Fossil example here, like the Emma jean or the Lucy dress, that was great in that we understood that it was a pair of jeans and that it was a dress, but it didn't mean a whole lot else to anybody. And so unless you saw a picture of it or you saw it on a model or you were looking in a catalog, you wouldn't know what Emma or Lucy meant. And so sometimes that was harder for us to kind of sell into. If you're able to add adjectives or descriptive words that help your customer understand what they're buying by just looking at the name, that can definitely be key and helpful, especially as we talk more about, online SEO and being able to really grab keywords for the items that you're selling. So making sure that it's very clear to your customer what it is that name portrays, what the product is, can be really key. So those are just a few of my tidbits when it comes to developing your brand's standards. In the Business of Apparel workshop that we're going to be launching in February, we are going to dive into this a little bit deeper and talk about it. So if you are interested in attending that workshop, please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. At the same time, if you liked this episode or if you've been listening to the Business of Apparel podcast and you like any of the episodes, I would love for you to write a review for us. I hope you're having a great week, and we will talk to you next week. Coming up next, we're going to start jumping into some numbers, which I can totally nerd out on you about. And so look forward to that next week. See you then. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, unmarkstreet.com, where I do weekly trainings through my video channel, a monthly newsletter, and offer so many resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand.